Hi, this is Dr. Richard Ruling welcoming you to the Total Health Channel. On my previous video, 2 minutes long, I indicated that I had three topics that your favorite pastor does not know, could not explain, and that we're going to be discussing them one a week. This topic right now is the biggest event in Revelation, the book of Revelation, in which we don't see it because it's encoded 4 different ways. And I'm going to explain those 4 ways to you right now and why it's important and significant. And if you like what you hear, come back again next week for one on the wedding parables or a link to it, because that's implied. When Christ comes and knocks, we must open immediately. He's coming for the wedding. And the wedding is high value. It says he will make us ruler over all that he has if we are ready and are doing the things that he says in Luke 12, verse 44 is the promise. And then the third thing that your pastor probably can't explain is the fact that Christ said before he comes, Elijah is going to come and restore all things. We should wonder, what are the all things that Elijah is going to restore? So we can help. We can be on God's side. And we will be discussing that a third week from now. This is the first week. What is the obscure event that's we don't see, that's overlooked, misunderstood, and but we need it in order to be ready. I, in my previous video, cited Proverbs 25, verse 2, that it's the glory of God to conceal a matter and the honor of kings to search it out. If we want to be ruler over all that he has, kings, we need to understand this. And since my name is Ruling, I wanted to understand it. I found it, but I'm wanting to share it because it's not about me. It's about God's special forces for the end time. So, having said that, let's look at Revelation 1. And John is startled, and he turns to look when he hears the great voice of a trumpet. Well, the next verse, verse 11, says, I am Alpha and Omega, first and last. Christ is also the Word. So if you go to where a word or phrase is first found, it often has a meaning or context for the end time, the last, the Alpha or the Omega. Omega is the end time. So having said that, when he said John heard a voice, a great voice as of a trumpet. Go to the place you first find the trumpet. We're living in an age of computerized stuff, so it's really easy. You go to a concordance online and click in trumpet, and here it is in Exodus 19th chapter. God comes down on the mountain, and the mountain is shaking, full of fire and smoke, and the trumpet is waxing louder and louder. The people are afraid. They're just, God's presence. In effect, it's a mini judgment day, I think. And I believe the book of Revelation explains that many judgments. They were entering a time of judgment in which people are going to, let me give you another example from this, and that is the days of Noah. As in the days of Noah, there were signs of an impending judgment on this world. Noah was preaching for 120 years. He was building a boat. He said, time to get in. And that same year, that same month, Methuselah died. Methuselah's name meant, at his death, it will come. So he died as a sign the flood was coming. And the animals came in. People were too dumb to, I think they were just afraid to be laughed at. But that's pretty stupid when it comes to life or death issues. It's better for us to be willing to be brave. And some of what, even Peter was afraid to be laughed at or sneered at the last night when Christ was in trial. We have to grow up and be hardened Christians in a sense of we're not going to care what others think or say. We're going to do what we believe is right and witness for God regardless. And that's what the 3 Hebrews, God can save us if he wants, but if not, doesn't matter, King. We're not going to bow down to your image. Well, the image that would represent it is probably the New World Order, the image beast of Revelation 13. But don't want to go there right now. Just want to explain some other things. And the great trumpet, mini judgment day, is one way of encoding it. And we do see trumpets in the book of Revelation. But also, in that same context, chapter 1 of Revelation, John heard a great voice, sound of many waters. Many waters. The roaring, if you go to Isaiah 6th chapter, Isaiah is called to be a prophet just like John was in the context of an earthquake. Okay, there was an earthquake at that time. The mountain, John heard the great voice as the voice of a trumpet, and we said that was like Mount Sinai when it shook at God's presence. But the great voice of many waters was also the context of Isaiah 6. If you back up just one verse, the sea was roaring, and roar of lions. That's the third way of encoding. If you find a lion's roar, it's let me say that Amos 3:7 says God isn't going to do anything without revealing it. And I've asked a number of preachers, teachers, people that are supposed to know, what is it that he wants to reveal? Do you know the next verse without looking? Well, I only found one Bible teacher that knew what the next verse was. He said something like a lion's roar. Yes, it says the lion has roared, who will not fear? The lion's roar is an earthquake, and we should be afraid at that point because it's going to be a big earthquake. We're talking about the Lion of Judah, Christ. In Revelation 5:5, he's the Lion of Judah. And it says in Joel 3:16, the Lord will roar, the heavens and earth will shake. Now that's a big earthquake if the heavens are going to shake as well. And the context, I think, is when Muslims take Jerusalem. In Zechariah 14:1 and 2, it says, the day of the Lord comes, which is the end time period, and all nations, I think Muslim or neighboring nations, are gathered against Jerusalem, houses rifled, women ravished, half the city goes into captivity. And Joel 3:16 says, the Lord will roar from Jerusalem, the heavens and earth will shake. So I think they'll get out of there. They know they don't belong there, and it's going to be a brief celebration of joy before that happens to them. And I can give you the details later because it's not the next day or so. But anyway, because these things happen at God's appointed time. Moed means appointed times. They were appointed in Genesis 1:14. Signs, sun and moon are appointed for signs and seasons, appointed times. So anyway, there we are with the roar of a lion, roaring of a sea, or the voice of many waters, and a trumpet. Those are three ways that it is included in the earthquake that initiates the end times is encoded. And there's one more, and we've stumbled over it before when I was talking about the wedding parables and do we know the knock? Only two places in the New Testament where Christ knocks. And that's Luke 12:36. When I come and knock, you must open immediately. And we think gentle Jesus always knocking at our heart's door, but this is not a gentle Jesus. It's a earthquake that shakes the heavens and earth, and it's the signal for us to wake up and go to the wedding. Really, that's the words of Luke 12:36. When I come and knock, you must open immediately. Blessed is that servant whom his Lord finds watching when he comes. He will gird himself, make him sit down to eat, and serve him. Well, if you think about that, that's what he did at the Last Supper on the eve of Passover. This is Passover imagery. And a couple other clues in that passage also are tip-offs for Passover. It says in verse 35, have your loins girded. Well, that's what they had back in Egypt. Rule of first use. First place you find loins girded is Exodus 12, verse 11. They were ready for action, loins girded. And it says to be watching. Well, in Exodus, again, the previous verse, Exodus 12, verse 10, they were to eat the Passover lamb and eat nothing till morning. That was they were awake all night. The word for watch is Gregorio, means be awake. Well, again, Passover time. And that's the time of his sacrifice. Now, we don't do Jewish ceremonies. We don't have to eat bitter herbs and do all that. But favorite author of mine said as Christ ate the Passover with his disciples, he instituted in its place the service that was to be the memorial of his great sacrifice. So if we did the Lord's Supper in an authentic way on the eve of Passover, we'd be there. And then when they finished the supper, they went out to watch and pray. And that's Christ said, watch with me. Couldn't you watch 1 hour? Be awake, in other words? Well, I've discovered that I'm like his disciples. I fall asleep if I try to pray very long. But I've discovered how to do it, okay? Have you ever fallen asleep while you're eating? Probably not, because eating is a stimulating thing, and we don't have to eat lamb or kill lambs. It's not; those are the sacrificial part of Christ's death is atoned for that. But eating this is my bread, my body, which is broken for you, and this cup is my blood. So do those tokens and then watch and pray. I've discovered how by reading chapters on the closing scenes of his life, and then pray between chapters. You can do that. It's like eating the lamb spiritually. It keeps you awake to do that. Your mind doesn't wander and fall off to sleep. So we can do what he asked if we will just keep that in mind. And so this is the wedding parable, and how we it's at that time that he's coming as the bridegroom when he comes and knocks. The earthquake is the knock, and that's how the ancient church of Laodicea, where he knocked, ended. It ended in an earthquake. Okay, big deal. And so if we understand that, we should understand the wedding feast of Matthew 22, when the king invites, sends his servants out to invite people to the wedding feast. That was scorned and ridiculed. Maybe because the feast at that time of Passover is the feast of unleavened bread, and we think of crackers. We don't want crackers for a wedding feast. We're more interested in cake, shake, and milk, shake and steak, and whatever, bake. But let's think that really this is not about a real physical meal. It's about spiritual meal, and Elijah is supposed to restore all things. There are topics that fit the feast of unleavened bread, because Christ said in Matthew 16 verse 12, beware the leaven of the Pharisees, meaning their doctrines. We need doctrines that are not leavened for the end time, those things to be restored. Well, we'll talk about that again another time, really, but specifically this is what the knock is, and the 4 ways it's encoded to signal the wedding. And I'm going to give you the link to the wedding and the video that explains it below. Thank you for being with us. God bless you, and stay with us. Follow, share with others. The wise virgins have light to share, and we want to help others too. Are we really the king's servant if we just keep it to ourselves and what? Well, we'll see. We'll wait and see. This is not a wait and see. If you're really getting married, you send out invitations to be wedding. Okay. When I was in college, I didn't get it. I didn't send out any invitations, hardly. But my wife-to-be spent a lot of time inviting people, everybody she knew. And that's what we should do, because this is important wedding, and it's coming up soon, really, believe it. So take a look at the link below, follow and share the best you can, and I'll be posting these videos below. You can add any comment or question you have, and I will discuss it on a Saturday on a free conference call, so that you can call in, ask your question, or hear it answered if you post it there. I promise to answer those that are posted as best I can, and I believe I am able on information relative to what we're talking about. I think I know, because I've been looking at it a long time. So come on, join us. You have nothing to lose, everything to gain. He will make us ruler over all if we really are there for him in the time of his crisis. The Greek word for crisis is spelled with a K, K-R-I-S-I-S. That's the word for judgment in Revelation 14 verse 7. Fear God, give glory to him, the time of his judgment or crisis has come. And God's got a crisis. The whole world is going to hell. And he wants to anoint a group of people like us with power. It says in Revelation 11:3, he will anoint them with power for 3.5 years, 1,260 days. They have the power to shut the heavens and turn water to blood. Well, that's what Moses did. I'd like to do that too. And I think we can. I think it's coming for us. Please stay with us. God bless you. And we'll see you again on the weekend at the free conference call, and etc. Let's get better acquainted. We have a lot to gain. And as Zig Ziglar, Christian motivational guy, said, see you at the top. Bye.